Are these the best Lionel operating cars of the post-war era? The history and operation of Lionel's operating milk cars on this episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. Hello again, this is Mike with Toy Train Tips and Tricks, and in this episode we take a look at what must be considered the most successful operating car in Lionel's post-war era in terms of catalog longevity, ease of operation and maintenance, and the all-important fun factor, Lionel's milk cars reign supreme. But the story of the milk car begins with another operating car, the number 3454 automatic merchandise car. The 3454, cataloged in 1946 and 47, used an ingenious mechanism to open the door of an 027 boxcar and fling miniature crates of Baby Ruth candy bars into a trackside bin, or, depending on the track voltage, above and beyond the bin. The crates were loaded into the car through a hatch in the roof. As the operating button was pressed on the special operating track, a number 6019 section for 027 or a UCS section for regular O-track, the pickup shoes under the trucks completed a circuit to an electromagnet connected to a ratchet and pawl system inside the car. The crate slid down a loading chute one at a time and landed into a rectangular launching seat. By pressing the button once, the car door would open and simultaneously boxes of candy were launched into the air. Releasing the button closed the door and reloaded the mechanism for the next launch. The original crates actually had Baby Ruth inscribed on them. Reproduction crates generally do not. There was also a number 3854 merchandise car in 1946 that used the same mechanism, but in a scale-sized pre-war carryover boxcar, and these are very difficult to find today. While the 3454 was fun and it worked well, it was missing that human element. So beginning in 1947, Lionel's design team changed the mechanism slightly by adding a human figure that pushed metal milk cans out the door and onto a trackside platform. And like the 3454, it used an undersized 027 boxcar. Original cars came with either 6 or 7 cans, depending apparently on the whims of the production crew. Operation of the new number 3462 required the same UCS or 6019 track section as the merchandise car. The 3462 was produced in 1947 and 1948. Later, Lionel made subtle changes to the inside operating mechanisms of these cars, creating the number 3472 milk car that ran from 1949 to 53, and then the number 3482 for 1954 and 1955. There are subtle differences in the appearances of these cars, these different versions. For example, some have white plastic doors, some have unpainted aluminum doors. The types of trucks vary, but the basic operation of each of these cars is identical. The differences are mostly on the inside. In 1955, the mechanism of the milk car was moved into a near-scale refrigerator car that better matched Lionel's line of number 6464 boxcars. Thus, the number 3662 was born. It operated essentially the same as the shorter milk cars, except another mechanism change allowed the action to occur at a little slower pace than on the previous models. As a result, the milk cans supplied with the 3662 were non-magnetic, unlike their predecessors, as the slower speed allowed these cans to remain on the platform without the assistance of magnetism. The 3662 cars were offered on and off through 1960 with only minute changes. In 1959 and 1960, a special version of this car, the number 3672, was decorated for Bosco syrup products. This attractive yellow car features a special matching platform as well as special yellow cans with Bosco markings in red. The attractive color scheme and unique style of this car makes it very attractive to collectors, but the operation is identical to the 3662. While the post-war production of these various milk cars ran from 1947 through 1960, the cars mainly went on hiatus from then until the new millennium, with the exception of a few very special limited runs. However, the cars have found a new life in the 2000s as Lionel has made a number of versions, from post-war reissues to Christmas eggnog cars. While the number 6019 and UCS track sections have been out of regular production since the 1960s, Lionel makes a fast track section to operate these cars today, although it will set you back $40 or so for a single piece of track. So let's look at the operation of these cars. First, we have the platform. There are several variations of the platform over the years, but honestly, the platform is not really required for operation of the car. You can take it off and the milk cars will fling on their own. Unlike, say, the cattle car, the platform really has nothing to do with the operation. There's no wiring whatsoever involved with the platform. All it does is, one, provide a place for the milk cans to be deposited, and it provides little tabs to help keep the track the proper distance away from the dock. Other than that, the platform really doesn't have a lot of purpose in the operation of the car. The deck is metal to catch the magnetic cans, which these are non-magnetic for the 3662. But even with the 3662, it came with a metal deck for durability's purposes. This is an all-metal construction platform. Proper operation requires this number 6019 special control track for 027 or the UCS operating section for O-gauge track, and you can see it better here. And since most of these pieces of track have been out of production for going on 70 years, the original wiring, the black 4 cable wiring, most of the insulation you find today is cracked and there are short circuits in them. These are, however, very easy to rewire, and I have a video posted on how to do this. Although please bear with me, it was one of the first videos I did, so it's rather long-winded, a little on the boring side, but all of the information is there. I'll have to redo that video and make it a little more presentable. The original Lionel controller for the 6019 sections, or the UCS sections, had 2 orange buttons side by side on a black controller that was hardwired to the track. Taking the opportunity to rewire this, I have my own setup. I 3D printed this box, which actually this is my very first prototype, and I'm going to make some changes to it, so it's not posted anywhere yet for download. I will once I get a better version of this. But anyway, all this does is hold a momentary contact, double pole, double throw, center off switch. So what I have is when I lift it up, it completes the circuit on the track to unload. When I push down, it activates the center magnet and the outer rails to simply uncouple cars. That way I can use the same loading platform for, say, the operating post office car that uses the plunger with the electromagnet in order to operate. I would simply hit the uncouple button and mail bags would be flinging onto the platform instead of milk cans. Now, since the car uses these pickup shoes to complete the circuit to activate the mechanism, it must be situated properly on the control track in order to function. Now, the earlier, shorter milk cars, it's a little easier. There's a little more wiggle room. These longer 3662s, because they are really longer than the operating track, in order to get it situated to where both shoes are in proper contact, your margin for error is much less as far as where you can situate the car. And so I recommend using a bumper so that when you park the car up against the bumper, it's in the proper spot. Because if it's not, nothing happens. You see I'm askew, but as I move the car to the right spot, there we go, there our guy appears. So let's take you through the operating sequence of the car. First, we've got a hatch right here. And you can see with the shape of the hole, the milk cans go in only one way. And there's a little plastic spring tab there so that you can load one at a time. And an original car would have 6 or 7 of these cans. I only have 5. I bought this one secondhand. I've got 5 cans. And you just load it and then push it so it clears that spring. It will roll down the chute and into its spot. I'm going to load all 5 of them in here. I think it'll actually hold 8 or 9 cans altogether. And you can hear it rolling down the chute. Okay, and then I'm just going to close that chute. And then you can run it around the layout or whatever. And then when you're ready, you park it on your siding, hit our unload button. Every time I press the button, I get one cycle. One can per push of the button. Now you can adjust the speed and ferocity of this by altering the amount of voltage going to it. Right now, I've got this hooked up temporarily to a full 18 volts, which is really too much, but it will work all the way up to the full 18 volts. When I rewire mine, I do them off of accessory power. The original track section, as wired by Lionel, uses track power. But by using accessory power, I can park it on the siding. I don't have to be running any other trains, and the operation of the milkman is not relying upon the speed of the train. Keeping these in good operating order is actually very simple. One, make sure that the contact shoes stay clean, because with dirty shoes, you're not going to have contact and you won't have operation. Check the wires, especially if they're original, for fraying, or sometimes the solder joints might come loose from the trucks, and that would end operation. As you run these around the layout, sometimes, especially if you have a derailment and they get turned on their side, sometimes the milk cans, if it's preloaded, the cans can jostle in the chute, sometimes turn sideways and get jammed. To fix that, all you do is take out the screws to remove the shell from the frame, and you can get in and have easy access to the chute to straighten those out to fix any jams. Speaking of operation with these, with this mechanism, this is a very heavy car, so you will want to run it at the front of the train. As I mentioned, Lionel has kind of updated this car with different types of loads, although the cans are the same shape for the operation. Sometimes it would be a Christmas car that is, unloading eggnog or such instead of milk, or maybe hot chocolate. These cars are pretty much bulletproof. They're easy to maintain, and they're fun. So if you haven't added a milk car or two to your layout, it might be something for you to consider, just for the fun factor and the ease of use. Buying these secondhand on the market today, depending on condition, of course, always. The Bosco car is probably the hardest to find, the most expensive because of its special graphics, followed by the larger car. There were fewer of these made, and also the larger scale size generally makes them a little bit more expensive at shows. The shorter versions were made much longer. There's lots of them, and so in good condition, you can generally find those with a decent platform in the $40 to $50 range. Isn't unreasonable for a cool operating car, especially if you can get it with a good piece of operating track. And as I mentioned, the track itself, the 6019 and the UCS, if it has all original wiring and the wiring is in good shape, those can command a premium, $50 or so, or you can buy the new Lionel Fast Track version. Again, if you're willing to rewire these, you can get them for $5 a piece at most shows. So there it is. I hope you found this interesting, and if so, like, subscribe, share it. Leave a comment about your favorite milk car memories, or if you have a nominee for an even better Lionel operating car of the post-war era, leave that in the comments. If you think that something is better than the milk car, go ahead and leave that. But, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, keep the trains running, and we'll catch you next time on Toy Train Tips and Tricks.